Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Feature Fridays. I am Jackie Kwan. I am with Uplifter, and joining me today is Garrett Trott, our product expert. Good afternoon, Garrett.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing good, thanks. Excited to do
Excellent.
our Feature Fridays.
Yes. And today we are going to be working on invoices, withdrawals, refunds, and adjustments. It's one of our hot button topics of things that a lot of our clubs do ask us about. And I'm looking forward to having Garrett fly through a bunch of the really quick ways to work with invoices so that you can do exactly what it is that you need as an administrator. So from there, take it away, Garrett.
Thank you very much. Welcome everyone to Feature Fridays. As Jackie noted, we're going to be talking about withdrawals, adjustments, and refunds. So during this presentation, we are going to be looking at the most commonly used practice for doing this, but there are other ways that you can accomplish these goals. So keep that in mind. If this particular method doesn't suit your desired end outcome, then there are other methods that you can use, but this is definitely going to be the most common. So in order to take action on someone's registration status in a program, we need to edit the invoice where they first registered for that program. In this particular instance, we're going to navigate to Accounting Invoices, and we want to select to edit the invoice in question. If you're looking for a specific invoice, you can use the filters on the side here. Specifically, you can use the participant and member name as well as the product filters to very quickly find the invoice that you're looking to adjust. Since we only have one invoice here, that makes it very easy on us today. We're going to select to edit this invoice here. And that brings us to the invoice edit page. Now, if you've never used this page before, that's okay. You'll probably have to, or you probably want to go back and review our full in-depth webinars on invoices. But as a quick overview, we split our invoices into three pieces. First is going to be the billing and contact information section, which we will ignore completely during this presentation. The next is the invoice details section, which lists all of the items, the costs that these items are being charged at, and the total of all those items. And last but not least, the payments section, which shows us all of the payments and transactions that have been made, including any pending payments that have yet to be transacted. Now, an important element to keep in mind, especially as we proceed with this particular concept, is that your invoice details section and your payment section have to equal one another. They need to balance. So in this particular instance, we have $130 owing and $130 has been paid. Any changes in these values means you have to also take action on the alternative element. So a change to invoice details means you need to take action on the payment section and vice versa. With that said, that out of the way, let's take a look at our very first step, which is withdrawing. Withdrawing is super easy. All you need to do is find the program you want to withdraw the participant from and click the withdraw button. And that goes great. It lets me know that they're withdrawn. And if that's the only action I want to take, I can scroll to the bottom and click post, and they're withdrawn from the program. Now, what that does is it removes them from the attendance lists, it removes them from the roster, and it removes them from any evaluations pages you might be interacting with. But you may have noticed that by clicking this button, there are no changes to the costs. And so that's our second element today. We need to make an adjustment. So if we just wanted to withdraw, we don't owe them a refund, we don't owe them any money, we can just click withdraw and we can click post. But if we do owe them money, we want to adjust the cost of this program. Now, whether you're going to go about this to give them a full 100% refund or just a partial refund, the actions are the exact same. We want to select to edit the line in question, and we want to add an adjustment. You can also do that from a tab here. Then we get to name our adjustment. This can be really anything that you want. In this particular instance, we'll just say withdrawal, but you may want to speak with your team and especially your accounting team and those who are concerned with the reportability of these items and just talk a little bit about maybe you want a specific code or a specific terminology used here. Once I've named my adjustment, I'm going to select to add. And from here, I can then adjust the cost of this item. Now, if I want to, adjustments don't necessarily need to be negative values. I can increase the cost as well. So I can click this little button right here, and that adjusts this from a negative adjustment to a positive adjustment, and therefore I can increase the cost of my item. But of course, in this particular example, we're withdrawing, and so we are going to refund money, and so we want to make a negative adjustment. We want to bring the cost of this program down. And like I noted there, you can do 100%, you can do a partial percentage, whatever you need to do. It's going to be based off of the original cost of the program, which for this particular instance is $50. And in this use case, in our example here, we're going to give them a full refund. Maybe they didn't partake in any of the programs, any of the classes, so we're going to give them a full refund. So once I enter in my value, I can select accept, and that'll let me know that the original cost was 50, the adjustment cost is negative 50, and the full value is now $0. And as you can see, as I hover over here, I can also edit this again if I need to make adjustments, or I can remove it entirely. Once I'm happy with the adjustment that I've made, I can select accept, and now that line has been adjusted. And so once we've made an adjustment, as I sort of noted at the top of the video there, we need to then take the equal action in the payment section. And because we've made this adjustment, we can now see the system is notifying us that action needs to be taken. Had we adjusted into a positive value, we'd see down here a pending payment line that we can take action on and say, yeah, they're going to pay tomorrow, or we've already received payment, what have you. But because we reduce the cost and they've paid the original $130, there's now an imbalance of $50 that we owe the end user. And so that's signified by this red icon here. And so now we need to perform a refund. In this particular instance, we have two payments listed here. We have $100 and $30. Now, as an additional sort of tidbit here, I wanted to let you guys know that you won't actually be able to perform a refund from this $30 option, at least not in full. If I selected to refund from this $30 option, it's only going to do the $30, and it's going to let me know that $20 is still imbalanced. The reason for this is essentially the same reason why if you ask a cashier to break a $10 bill, you won't get a $20 bill back. There's just not enough money involved in this particular payment in order to refund the full value required. If I wanted to, I could actually split this refund between these two different payments, but given the value of this payment, that seems a little silly, so we're going to just exit out of this refund and we're going to delete it. And we're going to refund from the $100 line because that can encapsulate the entirety of this $50. So again, we're going to select this refund icon here. And what we'll notice is the system generates a refund line for us. This refund line exists within the payment segment. So we know that's included and associated with this $100 payment. Additionally, when the system generates a refund line, it's going to use some basic default information. First and foremost, it's going to process the payment immediately. That means when I hit post, it's going to process this refund. And that's an important thing to note, especially if you're working with credit cards, it's going to process that refund as soon as you hit post. Additionally, you can also change the medium to which you're going to be refunding. So if someone did pay by credit card, you can refund back to that card, or you can say, I'm going to give them back cash, or maybe a gift certificate. And it's in this way, this actually defaults to the original payment method. So by the very fact that this was originally paid by cash, when I select to refund, it defaults to cash. And again, I can make changes to that, of course. If you do want to keep the money internal, gift certificates are a fantastic idea. This is a way to either create a new gift certificate, or if they have a gift certificate on hand, you can, of course, select that and sort of re-up that or increase the cost of the amount of credit they have. You can enter in a code, 1, 2, 3, what have you. And again, that should probably be something that you guys talk about. And then once you're happy with the elements in this refund here, you can accept this line. And of course, this is the full value. I'm happy with that. I don't want to split this. I'm happy with that. So once I've accepted that line, we'll be able to read this a little bit easier. We can see that there was a $30 payment, there was a $100 payment, and then a $50 withdrawal, or a refund, my apologies. So when I'm happy with every action that I've taken here, of course, I can then post the invoice. The system's not notifying me of any imbalances because I've taken action on that and I'm happy and ready to go. So I'm going to click post, and that will allow me to properly process this refund. And there we go. Now, after I've completed that refund, when I land on this invoice review page here, I can scroll down to the bottom and I can select to resend the invoice to the member. If I choose to do that, they'll get a copy via email. I don't have to select that if I don't want to. The end user can absolutely still log in. They can still see within their Uplifter account all of the changes and effects that have taken place on the invoice, so they don't need an email copy necessarily, but it's nice to send them one.
Actually, as a side note, one thing that has changed with PCI compliance just recently is that when you actually make changes or transactions to people's credit cards, whether it is re-adding a charge or refunding a charge, you are actually supposed to send them an email copy of the receipt. So we do highly recommend actually sending out an invoice copy of the changes that might have been made to the invoice for your members. So.
Yes, if you guys remember that a little while back when I said you don't have to send that, I take that back. You do have to send that.
I should have warned you.
Yes,
Sorry.
it's okay. So now that we have done that, we talked through that process. Again, that is the most common method, and what this does is it gives you a lot of reportability on what's taken place. You'll also have a lot of visibility and transparency on what happened on this invoice too. So if you come back to this a month later, 2 months later, 2 years later, and you're like, what took place here? You can see that Kim registered for the Still Life Sundays, but then withdrew from it. So that gives you a lot of clarity. The alternative to this is when you are editing the invoice, you actually select to delete the line. This is just as valid in terms of practice, but it doesn't give you as much reportability and as much transparency as to what took place. But again, speak with your accounting team, your treasury team, whomever it might be, and just talk a little bit about the best practices for your club and your organization, because it may differ depending on what you need to do. Now, with all of that said, we talked through this process. Let's actually take a look at how this process works once you're more comfortable with it, once you're more confident with how the system functions, because it can often be perceived as a long process, but it's really not once you know what you're doing. So in this particular instance, Kim's going to withdraw from Whittling Monday again, or Whittling Mondays as well, sorry. So we are going to withdraw, we're going to adjust, and she's going to withdraw for $50. And see, look at that. I thought I was good at the system, but apparently I'm clicking the wrong buttons. There we
Click, 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 click.
go. It's
No.
so fast. Okay, so I've added that adjustment. I'm happy with this refund. I know that there's an additional $50 here. I'm happy I'm going to give them back to cash. And then I post. That's all it takes. Just a couple of clicks and you've refunded them, and you have a lot of evidence and a lot of transparency as to what took place. And you can also leave notes on the invoice as well as to why it may have taken place. And then, of course, you can report on all of these elements. That is everything from me. Jackie, would you like to add anything at all today?
That's it? Wait, that's it?
Yeah, Feature
Is that
Fridays.
is that really how easy it is to withdraw and adjust invoices?
Oh, wow. Are you a paid actor? Is that what this is? No, yeah, Feature
If
Fridays.
only I were just a paid actor.
You can get paid for that? Yeah, so in this particular instance, that is all we have. Future Fridays is really something we want to focus down on particular actions on to give you guys a much more consumable lesson. So I believe that we have done that. And of course, if you have any questions or concerns, we are always here for you. Support at uplifterinc.com. You're more than welcome to reach out to us. And we also have an absolute ton of articles as well as webinars about this information. So if you do want to dig in a little bit deeper about more of the idiosyncrasies to invoices, you can absolutely do so.
Hey Garrett, have you decided what it is that you want to focus on next week for Feature Friday?
I hadn't thought that far ahead. No.
That's a whole 7 days ahead.
No, I don't know. What would you like to do?
Oh, I thought you had something.
I didn't.
You didn't. We might have some features next week, but you know
Yeah,
what? Let's keep it a surprise. Let's keep it a
let's keep it a
surprise.
surprise. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Leave
yeah.
them on a cliffhanger. All right. Thank you,
Sounds
everyone.
good. So if you'd like to see what it is that we're going to be covering next week, you'll have to tune in next
Dun,
Friday
dun,
at
dun, dun,
1
dun, 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 dun,
o'clock
dun.
Eastern Time. We hope you have a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.